I still can't believe how cheap we got this freaking steering wheel for. I mean, the quality of it is absolutely insane, and I just can't believe how inexpensive it actually was. I was expecting it to be kind of crap, and to my surprise, it's not. All right, party people, so today we are going to be changing out the steering wheel in my Honda Civic Type R. It's a steering wheel that I got for a ridiculously low price, and I think it desecrates pretty much all the other aftermarket steering wheels that try to compete with it. I got the 2019 Honda Civic Type R, and honestly, the car is phenomenal. The steering wheel is actually phenomenal. However, this is the factory steering wheel that comes on it. And no, don't ask me to sell it to you because I'm keeping all of my OEM parts. So if I ever do sell it, I can revert it back to stock. It's a great steering wheel. The bottom of it has been a little bit flattened compared to like the SI or compared to a standard Honda Civic. But at the end of the day, they just took a regular Honda Civic steering wheel and barely flattened out the bottom. And it's also got these red inserts, which honestly, the red doesn't bother me, but I felt like the steering wheel was missing one thing. I felt like it was missing its little indicator stripe right up here, especially because this car was designed for track use. And you know, when you're on a track, it's good to have that red or yellow, whatever color line that you want, so that you can, you know, have a reference of where your steering wheel is. And so I began my journey of researching different aftermarket steering wheels. I looked at the Buddy Club steering wheels. I looked at the Mugen steering wheel that just came out, which is a ridiculous price. And the problem that I had with most of the steering wheels that I was seeing on the internet was, number one, they looked ugly. I wanted my steering wheel to look like it came from the factory in the car. And so I didn't want any carbon fiber. I didn't want any fake carbon fiber because I felt like the shininess of carbon fiber made it look cheap and like it didn't belong in the car, because nothing else in the car has shiny carbon fiber. It has faux carbon fiber in it along the dash. And I was like, you know, if I could find one that is a dry carbon fiber and it's a good price, maybe I'd pick it up. And so Mugen released their steering wheel, which costs $750 for a freaking steering wheel. So I'm not spending $750 for a Mugen steering wheel. The second problem that I had was I started looking at the Buddy Club steering wheels and some of the others, and those steering wheels look good. The problem was I don't like logos of aftermarket products on the interior. Some people like that, but I want my car to look clean. I don't want my car to look like a rice rocket. I mean, it's already gonna get that kind of criticism because it's a Type R, but for me personally, I don't care what other people think. I just wanted to look like it came from the factory. The third option that I had was you could send in your steering wheel as a core, and then they would swap it out, and then you would get their steering wheel. The problem is, like I mentioned earlier, I'm trying to keep all my OEM parts. So if I ever decide to sell this car in the future, I can revert everything back and it will maintain its resale value. You know, if this was any other car, I wouldn't worry about keeping the OEM parts because, you know, the resale value is not going to go up if it's original parts that much more. But with the Type R, that might be the case because the Acura Integra from 1999, if you have one that's clean and you have one that's in good condition and all original parts, they're selling for like $75,000 to $80,000. And they only cost $25,000 brand new. So I don't know if that's gonna be the case with this car in the future, but I'm hanging on to the parts just in case. And so I found a steering wheel on eBay. It was logoless, it was perforated leather, it had my red stripe. So with that said, I will make sure to put a link in the description where you can pick this up in case that's something that you're into. Let's go out to the garage. I'm gonna show you how to install a steering wheel and what parts and tools that you're gonna need. It's not as hard as you might think. And then I'm gonna give you kind of my review of it and see if it's actually worth the $225 that I paid for it. All right guys, so I figured I'd do a video today showing you how to install this aftermarket steering wheel on a 10th gen Civic. On this case, we're using the Civic Type R. Something I've noticed amongst like the 10th gen Civic Si owners is they're buying the Civic Type R steering wheel to put in their SIs. And honestly, the Civic Type R steering wheel isn't that much different from the Civic Si steering wheel, except for it has different colored leather, and then the bottom of it is slightly flattened, but it's not a true flat bottom steering wheel. Basically what they did was they took the Civic Si steering wheel and they just filed it down a little bit to kind of give it a faux semi-flat bottom. Whereas this one, it has 100% true flat bottom. This one is identical to the Buddy Club steering wheel, except It doesn't have any logos on it. This one also has enhanced grips along the sides here that the Civic Type R simply doesn't have. Let's get to installing it. There's only about 3 or 4 steps that we got to follow to get this installed correctly. I've never done it before, so hopefully everything goes smooth. Okay, so step number 1 for getting this installed, get in your car, just turn it on a little bit and make sure that your steering wheel is straight from the get-go. Then turn your car off. Next, we just need to pop the hood, and then we just gotta disconnect this battery right here. And I called the Honda service department and they said to leave it disconnected for 10 minutes before installing the steering wheel because we don't want the airbag to deploy. But we simply just need a 10mm here and a 10mm here and then disconnect it. So the reason that the dealership said to leave the battery unplugged for 10 minutes is because the power capacitor needs to fully discharge. Otherwise, this airbag could potentially deploy while you're holding it, and you don't want that deploying while you're messing with it. It also disables the horn, which is kind of a good thing when you're doing this because you're hitting the horn all the time. So once 10 minutes has passed, then you can start by removing 2 bolts. Now, to remove these 2 bolts, there's a bolt on the left side and a bolt on the right side of the steering wheel. You're going to use a T30 Torx nut. I happen to have one on a socket right here, but you could take this off and you could put it on a screwdriver as well. This is just what I happen to have, just T30. All right, so once 10 minutes has passed, you got these 2 T30 nuts off on each side, your airbag will simply start coming out like this. There's a couple plugs behind here on the steering wheel. There's a green one and a gray one, and then there's also a ground wire that we're gonna have to disconnect. The ground wire is right here, but let me get you guys a better camera angle so you guys can see it. All right, so for this part, you're probably gonna wanna have a set of hooks here. I just got these hook pin things. I bought a little set of them. I'll make sure to throw a link down in the description in case you don't have a set, but this is gonna help us get the wires off of the back. So once you pull this out, if you turn it, it gives you a little bit more access to the back side of it. So for example purposes, the airbag was in place like this. If you pull it out and turn it, it allows it to come out further, just like this. And then on the back side right here on the bottom side is a gray plug. On the bottom side of this one is a green plug. And then right down here is our ground wire. So the first one I'm gonna disconnect is the ground wire. I'm just gonna pop it off with this little hook pin. And so basically the way that works is your ground wire is just a plug that's clamped on like this and it pulls off like that. On each side of these plugs are 2 little white clips. You compress those and that simply pulls out. And now we have the airbag out of the car. Really nice. Now we can move on to the rest of it. This is what our steering wheel now looks like. Now we need to simply take this plug out right here by compressing the bottom and then pulling that out just like so. All right, so for this part, I'm gonna be using an impact wrench. You don't have to use an impact wrench, but there is a big ass bolt right here in the center of the steering wheel, and that is what is holding the steering wheel onto the car. Now it is set into place with blue Loctite. So blue Loctite is something that, isn't impossible to remove, but it can be difficult. You could use a socket wrench as long as you have some help to get some leverage, but I don't have help. Therefore, I'm going this route. But I'll make sure to put a link in the description to this exact impact wrench, and you need a 10mm Allen head. And so this is just gonna go into the center like this, and now we got that bolt out. Technically, the steering wheel should come off completely. Now all we got to do is transfer everything from this steering wheel to the new steering wheel and then reverse the order. All right, guys, so here we are, got both steering wheels here. I kind of wanted to give you guys an up close and personal look at the differences between the Type R steering wheel on this side and then the aftermarket steering wheel on this side. And then I'm going to show you how to swap all the parts over. One thing that I can tell you right off the bat is the leather on the aftermarket steering wheel seems to be made much higher quality than the Honda. The Honda's is very shiny. Now, don't get me wrong, this could be totally fake leather. but the fact that it's not shiny, in my opinion, gives it more of a quality look than this one. The OEM steering wheel has these red inserts right here. Some people hate them. I actually like them, but I would much rather have this steering wheel over here. I can sacrifice those. Like I was saying earlier, the bottom of this steering wheel isn't a true flat steering wheel. It's actually just a regular steering wheel that was shaved down. Whereas this one, you can see, is a true flat steering wheel. You see that? So this is what it looks like in all its glory. You can see on right here, it's way thicker, kind of giving them a side-by-side comparison here. The aftermarket steering wheel is definitely more robust, more thick, has about the same amount of padding on the top. But the one thing that really sticks out to me is the ergos that are on it. This steering wheel is very comfortable, but it's also very slippery. You got these little risen areas here, and we got some red stitching. On this one, on the other hand, these ergos here are just way better. You got the red stitching, and it's perforated leather, and it just looks much better, in my humble opinion. Now, when you get this, there is going to be grease inside of it. Don't remove that grease. That's there to help us reinstall the steering wheel. So a couple tools that we're going to need to take all this off and transfer it to the other steering wheel is a Phillips head screwdriver. Probably going to need a couple of pick tools, and then we're going to need some panel poppers. And then if there's anything else that we need, I'll be sure to let you know. So first off, I wanted to start with this wire right here. It's just right underneath this plastic clip. We just want to pull that clip up and let that out, and then that will come out just like that. Now that that part's out, we got 5 Phillips head screws that we need to take out. The one on the left right here in the middle, that is holding a ground wire. So we need to remember that when we reinstall on the new steering wheel. So these remove pretty simply. There's one screw, and then we just go around, and then we get the one on the left. So now we're going to work on this one right here that has our ground wire. The ground wire is kind of not really secured, but kind of gently held in place by this little retaining bracket. So we just need to make sure that we get that out. And then that just slides on out just like this. Get all our wires kind of put back up here. Then we can flip this over. That should just come off this back portion just like so, if we did it correctly. On each side right here, there's going to be a plug, and that's for our controls up here. So we just need to, you can actually see them on the inside of the steering wheel. You just got to push something down into here, and so we can pull them out. And then that one comes out. Awesome. Now we got one more on this side. This one's blue over here. That way you don't get them crossed up, so they are color coded. Voila. Now we just set this to the side. Now we got to work on this part right here. And from what others have told me, you do need to be careful with this. One thing to note, this right here, it goes across the top over here to here. That's one piece. And then this piece right here is a totally separate piece. Now, to get this piece off, I've been inspecting this a lot. We're going to use our pick tool here, and we're going to compress. There's these little sides that we have to get compressed, so we can start pushing this pin out. If that makes any sense to you. We're just going to get those popped into place. I wonder if we took a little socket here, pushed it over the top of that, if that would compress it for us. This is a 6.5 millimeter socket. If you just place it right over this and kind of just push down, it will start to release those prongs that are on it. And there it goes. But yeah, there's the little prongs that I was talking about. We didn't break them. It looks like the inside part of this right here is kind of rubbery. So that's cool to know. This part of the instrument cluster, I'm trying to figure it out at the moment. But I believe that these little things right here that move, I'm pretty sure we just pop those out. And probably something else, and that should come out. But I guess we're going to find out. I started pushing on this side right here. It feels like it's moving. Okay, cool. So there's 2 places where it comes out in the back. We got to push here, and then I believe this one comes out. The most effective method I've found is to press here a little bit, and then press back here. In this little hole, there's a little piece there, and it's starting to come out, as you can see. And then we just go on one side, and then we go to the other side. So then if I go to this side, and the way I'm doing this is I'm taking my screwdriver here, and I'm just barely pushing it, not too hard. And then I'll come push on this guy. And then I come back here And you can see, if you can get those things going, it starts moving along pretty quickly. So that's good to know. But we got to be careful though, because we do got to get it off of the center part as well. And so the way I'm going to work on that is with these little guys. Just going to try to get underneath it, see what I see. Ah, there we go. That was it. I just kind of really pushed hard on that, and then that released it. Now we got to go release the other side. Show you what I did there. So I just really got a hold of this and pushed little by little and pushed here. Okay, and I came back to here. Then I came back up to here on the top side. I just started edging this guy out. So that something else is this gray garnish here will come off separate from the controls, but I don't want it to come out separately. I want it to stay attached. All right, so I got it off. This side did come off, but it's not a huge deal. This simply clicks back into place by these little tabs inside of here. All right, so that's not a huge deal, but definitely on the back side of your steering wheel, that one and that one are your anchor points. Those are the ones you got to get wedged out, and that's what releases all of it. So you do that on both sides, and that's how you get that out without breaking it. So now to reinstall it, we simply just reverse the order that we just did. Also, make sure all your leather is tucked in as you're replacing this, because if you don't have your leather tucked in, there might be a couple of pieces. It's all glued down, but there might be a couple of fraying pieces, and you don't want it to be not tucked in. So essentially, this piece that we pried out is going to go on this one, and then this round piece is going to go here and here. And then this top piece right here, that area is important as well. That is an area that holds it in, but these two were the hardest. So we're just going to place it down, and then we can kind of eyeball it, by looking right here. And we're just going to push softly and get it recompressed to place. We're just going to go around it because there is those 3 or 4 posts. You can hear them clicking into place as I'm doing this. We can come here to the back, and we can also kind of test it, and we can kind of get a visual inspection of how it's going. Then back here on this plastic piece, make sure that these get aligned so that those will go into place. You want to make sure everything's aligned perfectly. Then we're just going to look around it and inspect it, make sure everything's tight. Now we can move to the next part. Now we're going to take this trim piece, and we're simply going to place that back right here by placing it into these holes right here. And these little guys will go into this hole and this hole. So essentially, we got to get these holes in just like that. Then we can focus on that big guy that we had to take off earlier. Perfect. All right, cool. Let's move it on. So now we need to reattach the rear garnish again. Main things you want to do, make sure that these wires right here go right through the top. We're going to reconnect our connectors on each side, and then we're going to make sure that these 3 wires right here, we're going to ensure that those go through this little slot all the way through. Number 1. Now that those clicked into place, make sure our wires aren't being pinched. So I'm just going to go ahead and push those through. You just press down around here, and that should seal into place like that. So now we just got to put our 4 screws back in. The first one I'm going to do is the ground wire. It's a smaller screw for the ground wire, so you shouldn't have any issues with that, but let's get to it. So here's our ground wire here. Remember that it loops up underneath this plastic piece first. So you might have to use your little hook tool here to kind of lift the plastic piece so we can get it kind of trapped underneath. Perfect. Make sure that's pretty tight too, because it was really tight when I took it out. Now we just got to replace our 4 screws on each of the 4 corners. Then we can go put this in the car and reinstall it. All right, cool. So now what we need to do, we're just going to feed these right back through, and then there's going to see this little notch right here. That little notch is going to go through this little hole on the left side, just like so. Now the hard part is we want to make sure that our steering wheel is exactly the way that we had it. So we got our wires through, pulled all the way through. We got our steering wheel put into place where the spline was left when we centered it before we took it off. If it's off a little bit, your car the wheel will turn a little bit. If it's not off a little bit, then you should be 100% fine. I'm just playing with it just to make sure that I am 100% correct. If you're not, you're gonna have to take all this off again so you can recenter it. But that's it. We just kind of have to hold this into place because it turns, and press that back in. And for our big bolt here, I got this Loctite. It's blue Loctite. It's in a glue stick format, but we're gonna put a little bit more Loctite on it just so that this doesn't come off. I don't remember what the exact Torq spec is on here, but my goal is to just make it really tight. I'm gonna put this one on the second setting on this Ryobi because it does go up to like 300 foot-pounds. But get it started. All right, I don't think that's gonna go anywhere. I hope not. Now we just get our airbag here. If you remember, we had the green and the gray. Just connect the green clip to the green plug and the gray clip to the gray plug. And then we just gotta plug our ground wire in. Actually, before you do your ground, this little guy right here, it plugs right back in beside this black plug. Then we can set our airbag back into place like that. Then we got to replace our 2 Torx bolts on each side. Back up top. All right, cool. So it's actually been a couple of weeks since I installed this steering wheel. A couple of things that I will notice, and I just kind of using this one as an example. Number one is the eBay steering wheel is quite a bit heavier than this steering wheel. I would almost say that the aftermarket steering wheel is close to double the weight. I don't know what the exact weight is because I don't have a scale, but it feels good. I'll just put it like that. The second thing that I like about the new steering wheel over the OEM one is it's a lot less slippery. So when I'm turning, I don't feel my hands slipping. They just grip on very nicely. It's a higher quality material. I don't know if it's real leather on the new steering wheel, but it definitely feels like real leather. The other thing I like is the ergonomics, especially along these sides on that steering wheel. They feel phenomenally well. My thumbs fit right into this portion of the steering wheel as I'm driving it, and it feels stunning. It didn't really change the steering feel of the car, which I'm glad. I didn't want the steering feel to change because I felt that it was perfect, but I was worried that the added weight would change the feel of the steering, in which it didn't. Now, one thing that did kind of throw me off a little bit is the flat portion of the new steering wheel. Whenever I'm turning and that flat portion comes around to my hand, because it's so much flatter than this one, that one took me a minute to get used to. I was like, oh, this is different. That's the only time I really can realize like, oh, this is a way different steering wheel, is when that bottom part crosses over. It's not a huge deal and it doesn't really bother me, but it's one of those things that's like, oh, that's cool. Now, after a couple of weeks of driving with it though, it looks and feels just like it should come with the car. When people have gotten into my car, I took it to Vivid Racing the other day and we installed some stuff, which I have videos coming up on. The guy there was like, dude, where did you get this? And I told him that I bought it off eBay for $225. He's like, he just couldn't believe it. He was totally blown away that I didn't have to ship out a core and that I got a totally different steering wheel for that kind of price. And in his own words, he said it looked stunning. It looked absolutely amazing to him. And it does. It looks like it came with the car. It doesn't even look aftermarket, but it enhances the car that much more. And I get my little indicator stripe that I thought belongs in the car. Going over kind of my experience with the install process, it's not that bad. I would highly suggest that you use an impact wrench for removing it, because if you don't, it's definitely going to be a chore. You're going to need probably 2 people to do it. You're going to need one person to hold the steering wheel, and you're going to need one person with a really long ratchet arm to break the bolt. As you can see in the install, super easy using those Ryobi impact guns. So I'll put a link down below to the impact gun that I'm using. The impact gun that I'm using actually goes all the way up to 300 foot-pounds. So I thought that was kind of cool. The only downside is it's the 3/8 inch chuck on it, and you do have to get an adapter to use 1/2 inch chucks. But I'll put a link to both the 1/2 inch and the 3/8 inch, just in case you want to pick up a really affordable impact wrench for yourself. I highly recommend it. I can even use it to take the lugs off my car and everything. So not too bad. The most tedious part of doing this was obviously when we were up close and we were doing the electronics. If you take your time and you don't force anything, you're probably not going to break anything, but I can't guarantee it because I'm not there with you. So what are the cons to the new steering wheel? I literally cannot find a con. And I'm the kind of person that prides myself on finding cons with products, especially like over on my gun channel that I have at Tactical Toolbox. I really try to find things that are wrong with products because I want you as the viewer to know what you're really getting into, because I've been on that side of the camera, and I still am to this day, where I watch reviews for a purchasing decision, and then, you know, I get it and I'm disappointed because no one told me about it. But with this, at least with the one unit that I have, no issues at all. It went together really well, it looks beautiful, and I haven't noticed any types of wear marks on the steering wheel that are anything out of the ordinary. In fact, it's not wearing at all. So overall, would I do this again knowing what I know now? Absolutely, I would. The feel and the weight of it alone just make it 100% worth it. And if you're the kind of guy like me that doesn't like logos everywhere and you want it to look original, that's definitely the way to go. But let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments section below. Do you like this, or do you like the carbon fiber or the new Mugen one better? I'd love to hear your feedback. But until next time, guys, I love you, and you guys stay sexy.